campus. And then the days follow below are TKK through 5th grade SDC students, our students in our autism program and our DED program, our DHH, and our kids in 3rd through 5th grade newcomer program will begin school in person on March 23rd. Following that, we will have spring break, and as you can see, our pre-K, TK, K through 3rd general education students and our San Miguel and preschool students will also be coming back on April 12th. Then our 4th through 6th grade, as you see there below, on April 19th, and that will include our 4th through 6th grade general education, our SDC students 4th through 6th grade, and the students in the middle school newcomer program will return to us on April 19th. And then our 7th and 8th grade general education SDC students will join us on April 22nd. Next slide, please. So what does this mean for staff? Staff is going to be just slightly different than students. All teachers, as I mentioned before, all staff are expected to return on March 22nd for our staff development day. Following that, the teachers who teach our TK SDC, TK through 5th grade SDC classes, the ones previously mentioned that will start, will obviously be back on campus when their students are on campus. But for staff professional days, our TK through 3rd general education and San Miguel preschool students will select one day the week of March 23rd through the 26th to return in person. That will be only for one day, and that will be a day that you will work with your principals and your grade levels. And the purpose of that day is to make sure that all staff have had the opportunity to teach from their classrooms and familiarize themselves with new technology that may be available, with layout of the campus, and to actually try to zoom in with students on that day so that we have smooth starts. And after that, that group of teachers won't be back on campus then until April 12th. Obviously, any staff that wants to be on campus full-time can come back anytime, but you won't have to be on campus till April 12th. Then for our next phase, our 4th through 6th grade general education, 6th grade SDC and newcomer students, the teachers of those students will be expected to report to campus on April 16th in preparation for April 19th start date. And our 7th and 8th grade general education and 7th and 8th grade SDC students, the teachers of those students will be expected to report on campus on April 20th in anticipation for the 22nd start date. Next slide, please.
Dr. DeJenna, may I interrupt for just a second? There's a couple of technical things. I've gotten several messages that there is no sound on the live stream. Our IT department is working on it. This session is being recorded so that we can share this with the staff if in the event there's an issue such as the live stream. So we will post the recording of this session. We'll try by the end of the day tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. DeJenna.
Sure. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our student groups, and I know that there's been a lot of conversations, and in the webinars that we've had in the past, we've talked about cohort A and cohort B. Well, that is no longer something that we are doing, so I want to reintroduce the different student groups that we will have schedules for and that we will be anticipating being back in our schools. So the first student group is in-person learning cohort. So this is what our students who will be coming to school in person. They will be physically in school in the morning, and then the expectation would be that they would be doing asynchronous work in the afternoon. The other group of students, and these are two different groups of students, is the group of students whose parents have selected to maintain them on distance learning for the remainder of the year. This group of students will be doing asynchronous work in the morning, and in the afternoon, they will be doing synchronous work with you, zooming in. Next slide, please. So now we're going to get into our schedules, and I have a couple of different versions of schedules here for you, but I kind of want to walk through these a little bit. As you can see, this is our TK5 5th through 5th grade schedule. And in the morning from 8 to 8:30, this will be teacher planning time. 8:30 to 8:45 is what we call support and supervision. And what this is going to require is that all teachers be on campus by 8:30 so that we can all jointly provide supervision and support for our students. This will also be the time when students will have their breakfast and will be able to have breakfast in the classroom with you. At 8:45 to 11:15, instruction begins, and this will be in-person instruction for students. That will go until 11:15, but before I get into the grab and go lunch, there have been some questions in regards to recess and breaks for staff. We did not plan a recess for students, and part of the reason for that, or the majority of the reason for that, is because of the need to ensure social distancing for the students, and because they are in school for just a couple of hours. And so during this time, teachers will have, of course, the discretion primarily in the TK5 schedule to take students out to do supervised physical education, to have stretch breaks supervised, and all of that needs to be included as part of your instructional day. For teacher breaks, that was a question that came to us. We did not include a set teacher break on here, and we will be asking our principals to work with staff and grade levels in order for you to use or to work with our campus supervisors and implement something like what you would do on an inclement weather day, where we provide opportunities for teachers to take a quick break if necessary. At 11:15 to 11:30, school is dismissed at 11:15. And during this time, students will have a grab and go lunch. More detail will be available to you when you come on SIP day of what that would look like. But we are not anticipating having students line up anywhere or have large crowds. Students will have a grab and go lunch that they will take and eat at home. We're not going to have a facility for students to have lunch at school. We are asking parents to pick students up at 11:15, and this just provides another opportunity for staff to support in the supervision of the students to ensure the safety of students as they exit the campus. 11:30 to 12:10 is lunch for staff. And 12:10 to 12:30, we worked in something called attendance and engagement. And this is an opportunity for staff to go in and either update engagement, because we realize that the new engagement modules require sometimes for teachers to go back in, look at Canvas, see if students have turned in work, and capture engagement that way. So we wanted to include some time in the day for that. Then 12:30 to 2:30 is when we will be Zooming. Again, this is when the second group of students will check in via Zoom with their teachers, and it will be 12:30 to 2:30 instruction. Those are 2 hours of Zoom instruction where we are expected to have all students on during that time. During this portion of the day, staff has a choice of either delivering that instruction from their classrooms using the technology that's available in the classroom, or if staff prefer and need to go home and be ready to deliver instruction from home, that is also something that you can do. Zoom instruction will continue to until 2:30. And at that time, again, students will have to continue, both groups of students, both the in-person group as well as the students doing distance learning, will continue to connect with, will need to complete their required minutes as mandated by SB 98 using Lexia, Lexia Power Up, Lexia Core, ST Math, Mayan, or any teacher assigned work that will have to be monitored and recorded via Canvas. And then from 2:30 to 4 is an opportunity to finish up IEPs, PLCs, SSTs, all of those different things. As you'll notice, Wednesday will continue to be a distance learning day for all students. And there, as you can see, is scheduled time where you must check in with all students for a certain time. And then for the TK5, that is a time for you to pull back students from any of your class or in any content area in order to provide small group instruction. There are some considerations on this schedule, but I'm going to pause on that just right now, and I will get to those considerations later on in the presentation. Next slide, please.
Anna, before you go on to just one slide, I want to clarify one thing. For those of you I know in the chat are asking, yes, teachers will receive a break. You don't see that break specifically scheduled in this schedule that you see before you, because we understand that it would have to be staggered and it would have to be site specific, and to make sure that there's enough coverage for you to receive that break. So I just want to make sure that teachers understand you will receive a break. Thanks.
Okay, you got it. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the same schedule, but just wanted to share with you what the parent and student view would look like. So this is the blended in-person learning. So this is for the group that is in person. This is what their schedule would look like. The previous one is one that is a teacher view of what the schedule is, but we wanted to make sure to provide a simplified version for parents and wanted you to be able to see that as well. Next slide, please. And this is the student and parent view of the schedule for those students who are remaining on distance learning. All right, next slide. Okay, and this is our special education plan, and it is very similar to our general education plan. And is Ms. Edwards on here? Would like to speak to this one?
I am here. Looking for the plan. Give me 1 second. So this is the TK5 schedule. It's a little bit different. We do have distance. It's essentially the same unless we're looking at that Wednesday. There is synchronous time occurring on that Wednesday in the morning. You'll see that there's time, however, in the afternoon for assessments, IP, and other responsibilities. There still is the protected planning time indicated, and the same grab and go lunch style. So the biggest thing that we wanted to do was make sure that those hours are delineated accurately, so that parents are able to see this and then also see your links, which you'll be embedding in there, just like we did last time. We are creating the prior written notices for everyone so that that can be attached, and you won't have to do that. You also will not have to create a plan, a written plan, as once was considered. You'll just be using this schedule and then embedding all of the links. We're meeting with service providers to make sure that they're getting you their links on time. I know this will take a little bit of time, as scheduling does. You'll also see that in the morning, during hybrid learning in person, the distance learning group will synchronize for an hour with that group, so that there is some concurrent teaching, which I did see a question already and I responded in the chat. I think that's enough information for this piece at this time, Dr. DeJenna.
Okay, that's it, yes. Next slide, please. Before I get into this next schedule, there are a few questions that I think I'm seeing on the Q&A that I just want to address really quickly, and we'll get to others. So there is, I just want to clarify on the profession. Well, I'm going to hold off on that one because there is a slide for this. So the hybrid learning schedule, this is the learning schedule for middle school. So I'm going to go on to this slide and then answer some of these questions. So this middle school schedule, I believe all of you have received copies of it. Those were emailed out already. So as you'll notice, same thing, at 8:30, we start with support and supervision. Same idea as with the elementary, in the elementary schedule. This is an opportunity for all of us to provide that supervision for our staff, and also to have the students have their breakfast in the classroom at that time. 8:45 to 9:30, we have first period. There'll be a 5-minute break in between those periods. Students will rotate, teachers will stay in their classrooms and students will rotate. We have 9:35 to 10:20 is period 2, and 10:25 to 11:10 is period 3. During this time, the distance learning students will be expected to be working on their asynchronous work, including Lexia, ST Math, and so on. Between 11:15 and 12 o'clock, we have built in a time. Students will leave campus at 11:15, and it will follow the same thing. It's a grab and go lunch, so they will pick up their lunch and they will be dismissed. At which time teachers will have an opportunity during this time to also capture the attendance and engagement and in queue and in their Canvas before they start their afternoon work. Between 1 o'clock and 2:45, asynchronous work will continue for the students who were in person. Their day will continue in the afternoon. Teacher lunch will be between 12 and 12:30, and then immediately following that, we start with period 1, 2, and 3 in the afternoon. We have something here called Singleton ELD. And this is for teachers. When we first created our schedules, when we went into distance learning, we created schedules that that put ELD as a 7th period as opposed to a student's 6th period. And our rationale for that at the time was because we did not want to track students and have English learners only interact with each other during the entire school year. So we created this additional period. And so the teachers have been working on a little bit of a different schedule, and this 240 to 320 piece provides that opportunity as well. Then in the afternoon, we will have PLCs, IEPs, etc. We realize that the teachers who have the singleton, that it goes into that part of the afternoon, but those teachers would have an extra prep period during the day, so that in terms of instruction, we will all be providing the same amount of instruction. And the same thing applies for that Wednesday, where it is virtual, and you'll see the divided time during that time. One of the things that we are working to highly encourage, we have heard from you that there is some concern about students turning work in at all sorts of different times. So we will be working with families to try to really encourage families to have students do the work during the instructional day, so that if they can provide, given that you provide them the work in a timely manner, that then they can return it also within those deadlines. Okay, next slide, please. And this schedule applies for both general education and special education students.
Can I speak to that real quick on the SPED part, Dr. DeJenna?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is due to the period, because I already had a couple questions with the periods. The engagement is starting this way. The roll-in for 6th grade is the same. The 7th and 8th grade, it's the same. It's the same dates. That will help support service provision, working with the periods for electives as well as mainstreaming. So this, that's why we are using the same schedule rather than having a completely separate schedule. Someone also asked about the schedule I just reviewed. That Wednesday, there's not an engagement time because you're already engaging that Wednesday synchronously. That was all for that. Okay. Oh, and then resource. These schedules, there's not a specific resource schedule. The schedules for services will be created. You will embed that into the general education schedule as we did before. That's all. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Oh, this is the parent view of this schedule. Won't spend much more time on it, but it just gives the parents a view of the schedule if their students are coming in person. Next slide, please. And this is the view of the student-parent view of the schedule if students are going to remain on distance learning. Okay, next slide, please. So these are some of the considerations that we've worked into the schedule. The first one is support supervision includes breakfast in the classroom. We have worked with our child nutrition services to ensure that this is going to be a non-spill, no mess kind of dry breakfast to minimize any disruptions or to minimize any mess in the classroom. Teachers may teach concurrently, but do not have to. So what this means is that teachers can have their students who are distance learners Zoom in during their morning instruction and do both at the same time. And in order to do this, you'll have to make sure that you work with your principal in creating a schedule, because families will have to be notified and all parents must agree to this, since many parents are making arrangements for their schedules. So you will have to pick a consistent time, and whatever that time is in terms of when you want them to Zoom in. An example that was given to this is maybe if I'm an elementary teacher and I want to welcome all my students back and I want to do my calendar activity together, I may want to do that and keep my students together for a certain amount of time, and then work only with my students that are in person, and then in the afternoon work in smaller groups with my students who are distance learning. So you will have to have a consistent time. This will not substitute synchronous instruction time. If you select this model, you're still required to be synchronous in the afternoon with students. Now, it may not be with all students in the afternoon. This might provide you an opportunity primarily in our early elementary grades to do small group instruction, but that might be beneficial for all grades. Parents must agree to this schedule. The principals must have this schedule available. And if there's need to change the schedule, you must coordinate with your administrators in order to do this, because this will require communication with families to ensure that it fits within their schedules. DLI will be teaming alternate days. So students in the dual language program will not be seeing both teachers every day, but on Monday they will see one teacher, and then on Tuesday they will see a second teacher. I know there were questions in regards to this particular piece and what that looks like for attendance. We are working with our IT and CalPATS, and Q, to see how we can make sure that that's taken care of, and we'll provide communication prior to students coming back. We'll share that information with you. SB 98 asks us to focus on areas of language arts, mathematics, and English language development. Of course, we want students to have access to all content areas. However, we do want the focus of instruction and assessment to be in the areas of English language arts, mathematics, and English language development. And this mostly applies to our elementary schools, since in our middle schools, our students are still getting all of their 6 periods. And current guidance, and I want to clarify this, our current guidance does not require students to stay in cohorts, meaning that that other students can't mix. As a district, we will minimize student movement, and that's why students will continue to move together, but it might be necessary at a time. This particularly impacts students who have to mainstream and students that receive special, when we're providing students with special education services. Okay, next slide, please. So our staff development day on March 22nd, I want to clarify, because there was a question there, all staff being on campus. Our intent on that day is not for all staff to be on campus in one room. So we do not want to, our cafeterias will not be used, our big areas, our convening will not be used. We are not going to be convening staff. This provides flexibility for a principal might do the beginning part of the day via Zoom, and teachers will be able to join that Zoom from their classrooms, and other staff will be able to join from their offices. And then it might provide an opportunity for then principals in small cohorts to walk through the campus, to look at the layout, to discuss the maps that families will be provided in terms of drop off, pickup, where lunch will be picked up, etc. All of those logistical pieces that we want to make sure that we're all comfortable and familiar with before students come back on campus. And the purpose of this day will be to cover safety protocols, to walk through some of those things. In addition to that, to go through what the process will be on campus for contact tracing in the event that a student or a staff gets test positive or has been in contact with somebody. There'll be a whole protocol that will be provided, that you will be provided training on, to make sure that you understand how that's going to work moving forward in our schools. And then you will have teacher preparation time on that day to ensure that your classrooms are all ready for you. Okay, next slide, please. So I want to pause here and go over some of the questions that were sent to us already, and hopefully I through this will address most of the questions that you have. And if we don't get to them now, we'll try to, I know our team is trying to respond to some of these online while they're coming through. And what we don't get to, these will we will provide to you at a later date as well, but I'll try to get to as many as possible. So next slide, please. And I will invite any members of the team or of the panel, Stacy and Anjanette, to pop in as well when necessary. So how will we accommodate if more students decide to come back? Our classrooms right now and our principals already have a list of how many desks are in each of your classrooms. And the way that they are currently set up is that they are set up maintaining a 6-foot distance right now. However, there is new guidance that allows that to be between 4 and 6 feet. And so if we need to add more desks, but maintain that 4 to 6 feet distance will always be a priority. We will always make sure to do that while the guidance is that. So as we know throughout this process, guidance from public health and CDC has been changing often. So we will stay very much connected to that guidance and make sure that we are adhering to it at all times. If there are more students, the district will have a priority, criteria established to parents who decided that they wanted, told us that they wanted distance learning, but then have decided something different. There will be, they will be contacting the school. We will send that information to parents. We will be putting students on a list, and then based on certain criteria, we will determine how many students can come back into classrooms. We want to accommodate as many students as possible while always maintaining and adhering to all of the safety guidance that are required to ensure student and staff safety. The middle school plan states 2:30 to 4, but period 6, I think I already addressed that one of those periods runs a little bit longer. And so we need to just adjust that in our schedule to reflect that. OEA stated that we could teach concurrently, but not required. Does that mean we Zoom? And I think we've already addressed this one too in the criteria. And I think we've already also talked about the desks in the classroom and how many desks are in each of those classrooms. For this asynchronous time in the afternoon, yes, we need all students to do Lexia and STMath. However, teachers also may assign additional work, like in science and social studies, in order to have students do their projects or their homework or whatever it is that you are providing the students. Students who will be mainstreaming per their IEPs, and it will, like I mentioned earlier, there's no longer requirement or guidance that all students have to stay in certain cohorts. At this time, we are not asking teachers or any staff to check student temperature at the door. It is recommended by CDC that we do not do that. And ISP schedules will be worked. I will be asking principals to work with their ISPs and the current schedules to see where that where the ISPs might continue to support our students in the afternoons. Okay, next slide, please. So I think we already talked about that. Ms. Edwards, is there anything else that you want to add to that first question?
Which students are being hybrid and which one's in distance learning? Oh no, if STC classes, that one?
Yes.
Let me see. Let me read it more thoroughly. Well, the middle school is coming in with 6th grade. Teachers will be back, 6th graders will come, and then those students will have access to their periods and be able to mainstream. And for that reason, the 7th and 8th graders are coming when the other 7th and 8th graders are coming to allow for that same thing. Switch periods, how are they going to part? So that would answer that question, yes.
The next question is which students are going to be hybrid and which one's distance learning? When will you know that? Our principals already have that. And we will be starting this week to send letters out to families confirming, excuse me, confirming their selection. Sorry, too much talking. I need to catch my breath. Confirming their selection, and concurrently, we will get that information to all staff. Will parents have a choice to send their kids to school? Yes, parents will select the program that have already selected and will confirm the program that they want for their students. Will we be required to continue to provide full number of minutes on the IEP? Ms. Edwards, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, so the minutes for services need to be provided as we are doing now. We'll have a discussion about prioritization of services. We want to make sure all of those are based on student need. Some students, for example, have not been able to engage for various reasons, though the district or the provider case manager have attempted over and over. So those would be a child of priority if they are live, for example, but there are various examples. We will have a resource meeting, which the Zoom was sent out for Wednesday. We'll talk about that. I answered in the chat that I already worked with the OTs. Speech, we've talked to them about that in the speech meeting, but we will address it again just to make sure we have the same understanding. And then I have an SDC collaborative Friday morning. So by that afternoon, I plan to have a link where we will Zoom and talk about service provision as well as scheduling and things like that with SDC. So there will be some additional job alikes for our SPED department.
Okay, thank you. And Stacey, this is a good opportunity. There was a couple questions you wanted to answer live.
Yeah, so I just want to be really clear about the, yes, you will have an opportunity to teach from home in the afternoon for your distance learning part of your day. You can leave 15 minutes after the students, you have dismissed the students just like in our regular school day, and then you can go home and continue your distance learning from home. The other question I see popping up a lot is just a little bit more clarification on who is in person and who will come to Zoom in the afternoon. Just to remember that your groups are going to be split into students that are in person and groups that are distance learning. So in person, you'll obviously have the students that you have in person. In the afternoon, you would teach your distance learning students. The question I keep seeing is, will the students from the morning have to come in the afternoon? And the answer to that is no, they will not have to come. We were trying to give you the autonomy and flexibility as the teacher of the classroom to look at your students and say, if I teach them concurrently in the morning, then I have the afternoon to do small groups with my students. And I think that was it for me.
Okay. All right, next slide, please. I think we got to all of those. I think we already addressed this. Breakfast will be in the classroom, and that will be happening as part of the teacher duty day, and the kids are eating there. If teachers are responsible, there will not be additional compensation for teachers having that. It will be part of the duty day when students are doing that. There will be supervision for students during passing periods to ensure that social distancing. So yes, we will have campus supervisors helping administration, helping everybody, providing support during that time in order to ensure that students are maintaining social distancing. When students go to the restroom, there are a limited number of students permitted in certain restrooms, so we will have campus supervisors that will be helping monitor that throughout the day. Students will not be sharing supplies for our TK5 students. Each student will have a tote that will have all of their supplies there so that they do not need to share supplies. For our middle school students, we will be asking them to bring backpacks, because since they're rotating one classroom to the other, there's no way to have different totes for all of the students in your classrooms. And so if that is a concern, or we have students, or you identify students who don't have backpacks and don't have how to keep their supplies, please let us know, and we will work with your schools to ensure that they get that. Let's see. At this time, we have not made arrangements for an external battery. We will, that is something that we could explore, but we had not made arrangements to buy external batteries at this time. Teachers will not rotate classroom, students will. Middle school will not have an advisory period at this time. The only part that might be a little like advisory period is at 8:30 to 8:45. At that time, students are reporting to their first period classes. And so at that time, students will have a little bit more time there. I think Stacey already got to that one, and I already answered that one. Next slide, please. We talked a little bit about the DLI attendance for those days. We will send something out with specifics exactly how that should happen when the students are not with their homeroom teachers. And the hours for SIP day, are a full day that we want staff on campus. So we are not, in terms of providing students work, I think that this is something that we want the partner teachers to work on. For DLI, if students only do assignments for the teacher they are with that day, for example, students do English class work on Monday, Thursday, and Spanish on Tuesdays and Fridays. And that is something that we really don't want to tell you exactly what. I think that as partner teachers within a DLI program, you know, you work very closely with your partners. We want you to decide how to assign the work to students on those given days. And I already think I have I went through the schedules for you. There was a question about the school district is getting money because we're going back to in-person. I didn't answer that question at the coffee chat. So I want to share again what I think I shared at the coffee chat, but let me make sure that we understand. I did talk about some of the things that we had already purchased, but because I don't want to just talk about little bits and pieces, I mentioned at the coffee chat that in the near future, the superintendent will be providing information to our school board on how those funds are being used and making sure that they are looked at in a very comprehensive way to address the needs of our students. And so when that is coming, we can notify and let you know when that report is ready or that presentation is ready. I think we already talked about breaks, and will the district have schedules for families that's specific to DLI? We will work on schedules, letting parents know when their students would be getting one language or the other. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to briefly talk on this, and then I'm going to invite Mr. Miller to join me to see if there's anything that we can add to this. Classrooms, as I mentioned, have been set up. Our facilities team has been working nonstop to make sure that our classrooms and our desks are all distanced. Everything has been measured. And all of the principals have received reports letting them know how many desks are expected in each of those classrooms. All of the classrooms have already had or will soon have hand sanitizing stations that are built into the classrooms. All of the classrooms will have sneeze guards for desks for the students. For TK5 students will have totes where they will store all of their materials, and our middle school students, like I mentioned, will be carrying their backpacks. Mr. Miller, is there anything more about the classroom setup that you want to add?
Not at this time. I think you covered it pretty good.
Okay, thanks. All right, next slide, please.
I'm sorry, there are many questions about students bringing their own materials, textbooks, backpacks, things like that to the classroom. Is this a good spot to address it?
Sure. Somebody want to read? I'm lost on where we are with those
Sorry,
questions.
will students be allowed to bring their textbooks and materials from home? Will students be allowed to bring a backpack each day?
Yes, to both of those.
Thank you. It's in here about 20 times, so I think addressing it helps clear that. Thank you.
Okay, so that was it, just that one question. All right, next slide, please. All right, so there was some talk about some questions that we've received also just about, you know, do we monitor the students when they come in? And we do not. And again, that is following public health and CDC guidelines of not taking attendance. The only exception for I believe for temperature taking, I believe is for our preschool general education students, because those are under different guidance. And so they, I believe, do take attendance for the preschoolers. Now for, there is something that we will be providing to families. That's a daily wellness check that will include all of these pieces to make sure that children are checked every day to see if they have this, and providing parents guidance on when to keep children home. We have distributed to all of our schools thermometers for that are there in order for us to give to families to ensure that this is happening. And the parents will be asked to go through this guidance on a daily basis before students come to school. Next slide, please. There's also been a lot of questions on cleaning and disinfecting. So if it's okay, Mr. Miller, can you help me out with this one?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So safety is paramount, like we say there. Cleaning every day. Cleaning will take place as it does after class. Disinfecting will take place at the end of the day. Sanitizing. It's just part of that process. It's in there, but there are 3 different items. So back last summer, we removed all non-essential classroom furniture. That includes some bookcases, that includes extra desks. We followed the 6-foot physical distancing that was endorsed at that time. We also eliminated chairs, balls, toys, whatever we knew wasn't essential to that particular classroom was removed. Outside play equipment will still be off limits. We will make sure that the caution tape is checked every day and replaced as needed. We still will do the high touch area cleaning and touching as often as practical. We continue to look for items that will help us speed that process up or make us more efficient. So we're always looking to make sure that we have the latest product that we can do to keep everybody safe here.
Okay. Next slide, please. And I think this one's also for you. If you're okay with answering it.
If there's any questions, I'll answer them. In this particular case, it's just reassuring everybody that also last summer, we started running our air handling units at 100% of their available outside air. And we run them 24/7 since that time. So the advantage to that is when we bring in this fresh outside air, the inside air still gets brought back in through the return system, but it gets expelled to the outside. Hardly any of it gets back through. But those that come in from the outside and get brought back in, they're going through a bank of MERV 13 filters, medical grade, and it's part of producing the clean indoor air. And then on top of that, we've added the air purifiers, all HEPA filters, into the classrooms and offices and the relocatable classrooms. So that there should be one in every office, classroom, and relocatable classroom. So Air filters are changed. This is, I think this is something that everybody needs to hear. The air filters are changed when as we monitor them every day, we're looking for a pressure drop across these filters. When the filters reach that pressure drop, then we know those filters are no longer actively cleaning. However, we give ourselves a safety factor so that when they hit that drop, they haven't already failed. So that's when we will change them. Also, we will change them annually, just as a safety precaution. But all air filters are supposed to be changed when the pressure drop increases to your target level. So again, I mentioned all the air filters, air purifiers in the rooms are all HEPA filtered, multiple filters, and they make air changes per hour. But then so does our air handling units. They're designed from start to also provide X amount of air changes per hour based upon formulas. We do meet all ASHRAE standards and all current recommendations that I'm aware of for COVID safety.
Okay, next slide, please. All right, so now we have some questions that we're addressing facilities and safety. So at this time, we can go to the next slide. I'll let Mr. Miller and if Ms. Magana is with us, address these questions for you.
Ms. Magana has not joined yet. I will call and see if she can jump on.
Okay, so if a child, so I'll take the first one. So if a child or a teacher becomes symptomatic, test positive, how will contact tracing be handled? So this is specific training that will happen on the first day when you come back to school. Each school is going to have a team that has been designated to address this situation for students. And this, there's a lengthy protocol with specific steps that have to be taken in each one of these cases. And so that's part of the training that you will receive on March 22nd. What is the policy if a child refuses to wear CDC approved face mask or coverings? If children, when we had OSD connected on the site, this was not an issue. We didn't really address this. Students were very much willing to wear their mask and didn't happen to be an issue. If this happens, then I would make sure that right away teachers send the students with the principals and we will address it working with the families. It is required for students to wear face masks on campus, and unless there's a medical reason, and we would be asking for a medical note of some sort that would allow students not to wear them. So who will be responsible for disinfecting classrooms between class periods? So this is this impacts middle school. And the way that this is going to happen at the middle schools is that the middle schools will have more desks in them than they currently have. And we will have certain desks that will be designated for period 1, because that is the desk that students will likely be eating breakfast in, and then the next one will be period 2, and period 3 and period 2 students will in many cases have to share desks. So what we are requesting, or what we are asking for all students to do, is that they enter their classrooms, they will be disinfecting and using sanitizing before they go to the desks. And we will not be cleaning desks between periods 2 and period 3. All right. Will there be someone supervising staff and students entrances to campus? We will have all staff, we will have campus supervisors, administration, and all staff providing supervision, as you saw built into the schedule. Where will students be housed if they become symptomatic during school hours? This is part of the contact tracing, and all schools have a room that has been designated as the care room, and that will be the room where students will be sent in the event of somebody having some type of symptoms or not feeling well. Classrooms with no sinks. I believe there are minimal number of classrooms with no sinks, but in these classrooms, we have also provided more sanitizer in order to make up for the lack of sinks in those classrooms. Next slide, please. Okay, so now it's questions regarding human resources. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Torres. And you can go to the next slide with questions.
Hey, good afternoon. I know if you look at the first three, they are kind of pretty similar in regards to if a teacher tests positive and is required to quarantine, will they be required to use sick time? The second one also kind of regarding a student testing positive and whether or not a teacher is required to use sick time. And if a teacher must quarantine, can they Zoom at home or will they have to take sick time? Okay, currently the current guidance in regards to COVID-19 is once you are vaccinated, 10 days after you receive your second vaccination, that basically if you come in contact with a COVID-19 positive case, that there is no need to quarantine further. So that is basically that's we have encouraging everyone to go ahead, get the vaccination, and that way, if you do come in contact with someone that is positive, there's no need for you to go quarantine. So having said that, if for some reason you do have to quarantine, if you have the ability to go home and Zoom, then as a class, we would take a look at that and look at the contact tracing. And that will make a determination whether or not you're going to be home Zooming, or if for some reason you're unable to Zoom because your condition is you're too sick to, then you take a sick time. So, and let's see the next one. In regards to whether or not parents will be notified, whether or not you are vaccinated or not, that is actually, if you are vaccinated, number one, we ask that you go to our portal and let us know that you're vaccinated. However, that information will not be shared with parents. It is a need to know. And basically that will be kept in-house within the HR department. So we will not be notifying parents whether or not a teacher has been vaccinated or not. Okay, in regards to distance learning positions, how will we determine which teachers will be assigned? We will not have any distance learning assignments. All assignments you will come into campus during the day and do distance learning in the afternoon. And in regards to a survey to determine which teachers have immune compromised or live with someone, we basically are not submitting a survey out to any of our teachers. The expectation is that all teachers return to work. And if you do have a medical condition that prevents you from working, then you would have to go ahead and submit a doctor's note and go through the interactive process. And the likelihood is you would have to go ahead and take a medical leave of absence. And then, as stated earlier, students will not be tested. However, in regards to our staff, right now, we are currently following the guidance established by the health department, and we will be looking at least minimum every 8 weeks. However, those guidance change depending on different aspects. So it's possible we can go down as low as once a week if we return back into a purple status. So that as of right now, we are looking at least every 8 weeks. We will be establishing a cadence, and we will be pushing that out within the next couple of weeks in regards to which teachers have to go ahead and, or which, actually it's everyone, which employees need to go ahead and take their COVID test and submit. So I know another question that a lot of individuals are asking is, if I am vaccinated, do I need to take the COVID test? At this point in time, the guidance does, we still need to take the COVID test. However, we will continue to monitor that and make, whatever guidance is coming from the CDC and the health departments, that's what we will follow. So as of right now, we are still required to take the COVID test, but like I said, once that changes, we will go ahead and let everyone know. And then let's see, will more teachers be hired so we can ensure proper social distancing within the classrooms? Obviously, with the new model that we have come to an agreement with the association, that allows for our students to actually be in the classroom as well as distance learning, which will not necessitate us hiring additional teachers on top of the multiple teachers that we had hired earlier in the year for our COVID. And what are the plans for teachers who become systematic during the school hour? So same thing, we will actually, if a teacher becomes sick, we will have them go ahead monitored and then more likely go home. So we work on that. And how does calling in sick for full half-day work? Nothing has changed in regards to calling in sick. You will still continue to use our absent management program and call in your sicks, whether it's a full day or a half day. And one of the other things that we've also done is we've actually have hired an additional sub that is being hired for each of the campuses that will report daily, help assist in any of these if someone is absent or something like that. But one of the things is make sure you go ahead, if you know you're going to be out or you're sick or something like that, go ahead, put it in the absent management system, and that way our substitute clerk here can go ahead and begin calling and trying to get your class covered.
Okay,
That's
next slide, please. Okay, so at this point, we have gone through the presentation that we have available for you. We can probably, there's a couple of people that I see questions that would like to answer live. So at this point, I would like to turn it over if you see there's any additional questions you would like to answer live.
So
Dr. Batista, I see that you've marked one.
I marked them to be answered
Dr.
live.
DeGina,
I don't have the answers.
I think you need to give us a couple of minutes to locate the questions. I'm not sure that the audience can see, but there are several questions that have been entered. In fact, we've answered over 130 questions, and we have 174 that are in here. We're doing our best to get through the questions as quickly as we can. So please understand, I see some of you have put your question in here 2 and 3 times. We're working through them, and if we have marked them to answer live, it takes us a minute to go through those to find the right question. So Dr. Batista, were you able to locate yours?
I was saying that I put answer it live, not because I had the answer, but because I didn't have the answer, so I wanted it answered live.
So if you can find your please answer this live and read it out loud, that would be helpful, or we can just start going through them systematically. I think we're gonna go systematic.
I have 2, Ginger, if you want me to answer them for Danielle. I have 2 that I put to the side. Would you like me
Please
to answer?
do.
So it was regarding resource schedules. I will go more in depth with that at the resource meeting, but it is expected that the minutes will be served. We're going to talk with each provider group, which I just finished out with OTs now, on how to prioritize by student need. We need to look at how they're accessing. Are they more successful on Zoom, less successful? Have they been coming? Did they decline during distance learning? There's a lot of things we need to look at in prioritizing what would be most beneficial for each student. So that's what that will look like, not just for resource source, but all service providers. And then for the paraeducators, I'm only speaking to special education paraeducators on the question about how they can be utilized. They'll be utilized as they currently would be utilized, which, yes, the question is, can they work in small groups? Can they do one-on-one? Yes, they should be doing those things as they typically would. That can occur through a distance learning platform or live.
Okay.
Okay.
There are questions about, since students are passive screening at home, why can't staff screen at home? I think they'd like to take their temperature at home And they're wanting to know if they can do that instead of at the gates.
Yes, I believe you may.
Okay,
One of the things you need to make sure, if you are going to do it at home, that you still need to please make sure that you go ahead and utilize the QR code. And check in and log in and identify that you are not symptomatic or anything like that. So you still will be required to fill out the QR code or the questionnaire.
Dr. Torres, while you're there, there's also questions about can teachers take student temperatures when they come into their classrooms if they want?
Dr.
can't- I'm
Torres, you're
sorry, I can't
muted.
hear you.
Yes. In regards to teachers taking temperatures, if the teacher feels more comfortable, I mean, I don't see a problem with that. However, I would just just caution in regards to, it's not an expectation of the teachers. We actually issued out close to 10,000 thermometers to the families. And if you have students that are saying that they don't have any thermometers, you can go ahead and contact the ORCs at each of the school sites. And we have those at the in the offices already. So if you have students that are going to need to have their temperatures taken, like I said, I think it's best if we go ahead and make sure that we provide them with their own thermometer so they can check at home.
I would
Okay,
like to answer a question live. This one comes with the filters. How have you seen or heard how often the pressure does drop? Have you any estimations based on the amount of kiddos in our room? So a filter's job is to filter out, what do you call it? Unacceptable air, dirt, if you will. So as it catches that dirt, the air pressure that's pushing it through the unit just tends to build up. And that's what makes it drop in pressure, as it doesn't go through it as easily as it did when it was clean. We know the starting number or the value of the pressure drop when we put them in brand new, calculate out to what we're going to find is acceptable. And again, there's a gap there just so they're not going to the very end. And we have gauges on them that tell us what the pressure is at all times. For those that don't have room for the gauges, we've built our own handheld monitor. We can just stick it in there and see what the pressure in the ductwork and see what the pressure is at that particular moment. Again, because we know what the starting pressure was, then we can tell that. So the point of driving this question live is a filter can get dirty in as quick as 1 day. If for some reason it just takes in a bunch of undesirable air, it can fail that quick. So periodic changing of filters isn't the best way to go at all. So we're using the filters the way they were designed to work, filter out the air, and that's how we keep track of them when they need to be changed. Thank you.
okay, thank you. All right. Dr. Shea, do you want to just go through and give us some of those questions, and we'll do our best to try to answer them? I know we're already past we're getting close to 5 o'clock, but we can take another 15 minutes or so if we want to get to more questions.
Okay, there's questions, Mr. Miller, around daily cleaning of the classrooms. Teachers are wanting to know how they can be sure it's done correctly and would like to know what the chemicals are that are being used.
Main chemical for disinfectant being used is a Clorox product. It comes out of a electrostatic machine and gets applied to all surfaces. There's no extra chemical on the ground. There's nothing to slip in. So it's called the Clorox 360 machines. And those are done every night because they cling to whatever you point at to spray them. On the other sides, they just loop around and grab what it needs and puts that disinfectant on it. So that's how we know they're being cleaned efficiently and effectively because the chemical covers everything. And we have had training for all our custodians to use that machine properly. And again, we're pursuing other strategies as well to make sure that we can do this even more efficiently and with more rapid.
And Mr. Miller, if I add to that, I think when they spray the electrostatic sprayer in the classroom, that's different than mopping the floor and cleaning the room. Like there's a difference between sanitizing and cleaning.
Correct. There are 3 different types: sanitizing, cleaning, soap and water, and the disinfecting. The whole goal is to kill all the germs down to 99.99%. This is the best any product can do.
Okay, so will teachers have to do any cleaning or disinfecting in their classrooms?
The strategy is right now, I do not believe so.
That's correct.
I'm scrolling for some cleaning questions. There's questions regarding the air ventilation. You said that there's 1 filter, and maybe you could restate what you said earlier about air filtration.
So I didn't see the question exactly, but I'm assuming that that is the air purifiers placed into each room. Is that what it would be?
Well, I think you've addressed that there's the MERV 13 filters in the classrooms and an air purifier in the classroom.
Right. So the air that in the conditioned system that comes through your ductwork, that is being treated with MERV 13 filters, filtration. And again, that's medical grade. And again, that system is providing air changes per hour based on the original engineering, which was based on students in the room and square foot. So the air purifiers are just adding to that. That's the icing on the cake, if you will, where we're just then taking that already cleaner air, and we're making it cleaner. So it's just consistently running 24/7. So never will get ahead of you. And there's indications when the filters are starting to become ready to change, and we have enough filters in stock to get those changed immediately.
Okay, some of these questions start to go into rostering and queue. And I know that Miss Mitchell, I believe, is in the audience if I need to promote her up to help us. Can DLI work with both rosters every afternoon, 12:30 to 1:30 one roster and 1:30 to 2:30 the other roster?
So you need to take a look. I think the priority there would be to potentially, but you would need to take a look to see which of the students, because keep in mind that in the morning, you're supposed to be working with the students that are in person, and in the afternoon, you're working with your kiddos who are distance. Unless you're doing concurrent teaching, in which case you could change it up a little bit. Anything in terms of dividing the kids that way, we would really prefer to keep them in one language every day. So all the students getting Spanish will get Spanish one day and English get English the next day, just so that we keep some uniformity in our schedules.
Will queue attendance be broken up by morning and afternoon?
Queue attendance will, your queue attendance will be color coded so that you will have students that you will have on distance learning and students that you will have in person. So when you pull up your rosters, you will be able to see that. I know there was a question about when we're getting those rosters to you, and we are working to notify family. We will be working to notify families of their of the program they selected, and we'll get those out to you as well.
Will RSP students be pulled during their gen ed time in person, or will they stay on campus after lunch?
So I answered that that was repeated, that question a few times, but they are not going to be staying afternoon. They're going to be here with their groups, and then they'll be serviced according to whatever the schedules reflect. Again, basing that on need, student access, student goals, progress, strengths and weaknesses. We'll talk a little bit more about that again at the resource meeting, but they will not be staying in the afternoon. I have another couple questions I looked at, Ginger, if you want me to just do those.
Please.
So mask wearing does have a protocol. It will be publicized. It'll also be in the shared drive. Someone asked about that and also about if you're training the student. Behavioral interventions will be supported. I guess behavioral interventions can be looked at as training of some sort, but we would definitely be getting the support of our school psychologists, of our behaviorists. There's this 3-step strategy on various levels, and you'll see that in the shared drive by this week. I'll go over it at the resource meeting and the STC meetings as well. It can be an accommodation in the IEP eventually, but those steps of protocols and procedures related to the interventions should be followed as we work toward possibly including that as an accommodation in the IEP. We are following the mask wearing guidelines that are supported and indicated by public health, but because some of our students have a disability that does impair them in that way, though we will attempt to do the behavioral interventions, if an accommodation is warranted, that will be considered at an IEP meeting.
Thank you. Was there another one you were going to address? If you can find it. You're muted now.
And now I'm looking for it.
Okay, let me know when you find it.
Okay.
Our morning in-person teaching ends at 11:10, but lunch starts at 12 o'clock. What is required of us during those prior 50 minutes?
So those, if we're talking about, I'm guessing that's the middle school schedule. I'm trying to remember which one is at 11:10, but if that is the middle school schedule, and really that is time for you to go in and see if you have to go in to change your engagement, to load and put things that you need to put into Canvas. So it's really work time for you to use to make sure that we just wanted to make sure to provide you some time in the day to be able to capture attendance and engagement, knowing that it is more complex than it is when you're in person, since it has the different components, the 2 different components of attendance and engagement.
If all of my students in my class choose to stay virtual, do I still need to teach from my school site?
Well, I have not seen any class where all the parents have selected to stay virtual. So I don't know that I have an answer for that one at this time. Our expectation is for teachers to be on campus at least in the morning. But if there is a situation when 100% of the students would stay virtual, I think that that's something that we would need to discuss on a one-on-one basis.
Okay.
Okay, other questions?
There's so
There's
special.
still like 190 questions. I say others, but
So special education teachers are being asked to complete an entire new round of distance learning schedules to send home to each student on our caseload.
Yes, I responded to that, but I'll be happy to respond to it live. Yes, we will need to do that because these are new distance learning schedules. Every child is now going to have a different schedule with different services. We've just spoke to the groupings. We have to regroup. We have to reorganize our schedules depending on their choice. So all the distance learning plans will be different. I'll be sending out a prior written notice that everyone can include with that. That part will be done. And in addition, you'll still be able to use the schedules rather than having to write up a distance learning plan. So you'll be able to input links already in a template created for you, but those will need to get done. However, we did, as I mentioned in the chat, because these need to be done before we return so parents know what to do, we would be indicating a provision of compensation and having extra hours delivered to our staff.
If an in-person student is absent, can they come to distance learning in the afternoon to make up the absence?
I am going to have to get back to you on that. That is something that we we're trying to address and work through Q to make sure that it captures it correctly, because currently the way that the system is set up, it either says in person or distance, and we need to, we are trying to get answers from Q and see if there's a way for us to do that.
Can we have a classroom library in our classroom and a teacher desk where we can put our teaching materials? I'm thinking there's two questions in there. One, can they have books in their classroom as a library? And then I think the other is a concern about the furniture in the classroom. There was another question about bringing in extra bookcases as well.
I apologize, but I'm going to, I'm not sure. Have all teacher desks been removed from classrooms?
Not from the ones I've walked through.
Yeah, you should have a teacher desk there. To my knowledge, teacher desks were not being removed. Extra things were being removed, so you should have your teacher desk there.
Mr. Miller, did you want to make a comment?
No, I agree. The teacher's desks were not moved. We set the room up where we found the teacher's desk at, so it reflects what they were used to seeing, but keeping the 6-foot distance.
So the other ask of that question has to do with bringing extra books in outside of the adopted material, library books, but also being able to hang things on the walls in the classroom.
Well, the protocol we followed when we set up the classrooms was nothing that was not needed for the delivery of the instruction had to be removed. And might seem a bit strict, but the less places we have to gather any type of COVID-19, it's better right now. Guidelines change, I'll agree to that. And as soon as they do, we'll take another look at everything that we've done.
Yeah.
Can you spend a moment to—
and just in terms, if I could just, I'm sorry, just in terms of furniture, keep in mind that the primary focus that we want to do is do everything that we can to maintain the social distancing. So we do have teacher desks, but we'll have the student desk, but we are not going to be adding any additional furniture into our classrooms because we really do want to be able to accommodate the students that want to come back.
I did want to, I see a lot of questions circling now because of mentioning the distance learning plans for special education. Yes, they are essential. They're a legal mandate. We have to do that. We have to complete them and we have to get them to families. However, as indicated, we will be providing extra hours to meet this challenge. I know that some are coming later than others with the rollout. So that does impact, when the parent necessarily needs to know. At the same time, the sooner the parents are able to know what their schedules are for their child, the more success we'll have in getting them logged on. If they are Zooming, and then knowing what they're going to do and expect when they come to school. So that date of the 22nd would be what we would be trying to attain for completion of the distance learning plans.
Okay. Sorry, things bounced around again. There was a question on, can you elaborate on teaching congruently? Are you referring to live streaming? Will there be a camera if we choose this option or just a laptop camera? Can we live stream for in-person students and distance learners from 8:45 to 11:15 and then run small groups in the afternoon?
Okay, so yes, it is live streaming. That is what we're talking about. I don't know if that's the correct terminology, so I apologize if I'm not using it, but it is zooming in with your kids while you have kids in your classroom. So that is what we mean by concurrently having both groups of students in your classroom at one time. We do have, our new Promethean boards in most of our classrooms, and I know that they do have some technology that would assist with that. We do not have extra cameras We have looked into purchasing those cameras, but they are, I believe, back ordered for a couple of months is my last understanding from IT. And so you will be likely required to use what is in there in terms of either your laptop or the camera that is within your board if your board has one. In terms of, yes, you could have all your students Zoom in the morning, and you can do small group instruction in the afternoon. There was a question in the chat that I answered, but it might be on other people's minds as well, so I want to touch on it. Zooming in concurrently does not, you cannot use the time in the afternoon to do planning or other stuff. It has to be student instruction. So that is an opportunity to do small groups, to pull back extra supports, but the requirement is that we have student teaching during that time.
Kindergarten students in the afternoon will be on Zoom for 2 hours, question mark.
That is the time that we have to get instruction in there. And so I think we need to be somewhat creative on how that is done with our kindergartners. But yes, the expectation is that they are on live with teachers for those 2 hours. Now that might be an opportunity where you use your paraprofessional to do breakout rooms and different kinds of instruction, but they are on Zoom for those hours.
I think I have another one I can answer, Ginger, but may need Dr. DeGena's support. It's about the IEPs, and I would answer that they are not relegated to only the 2:30 to 4 hour, depending on what the school site can manage and cover the classrooms. And as typical, what we would normally do, if you have sub availability or coverage, then that's fine. That there's not a limit of 2:30 to 4 only.
That is correct. We know that in some of our sites, we have more IEPs, and 2:30 to 4 that would not necessarily be enough time for that. And so if we have to have IEPs at other times, then we would have to be able to sub out teachers in order to be able to do that when necessary to attend an IEP.
Will teachers' desks get sneeze guards too?
Teachers' desks do not have sneeze guards. A student's desk have sneeze guards. Felt that in most cases, likely teachers might not be sitting behind their desk. And so, but teachers do believe we have ordered face shields for teachers so that it provides more flexibility of rather than just having to stay behind your desk, but to be able to move around with a face mask shield.
Okay.
There's a question for psychs and speech specifically. I think we need to address that in a different forum. I just don't want to ignore the question because that is an OSA situation. Dr. DeGena, should we address that in a different forum?
I'm sorry, what was that?
A specific question about hours for psychs and speech therapists.
Yes, I think so. There still seems to be some questions regarding the concurrent teaching. So if you have questions, please let me know. I'd be happy to, or give me a call. We'd be happy to answer those. I would also talk to your principals about it. They might be able to answer those questions as well in terms of what is meant by concurrent teaching, because I think there's still some confusion about what that might look like. Keep in mind that we have to abide, for all of our students, we have to abide by the minutes of instruction as mandated in SB 98. And in SB 98, the minutes of instruction are, for TKK, we have 180 instructional minutes. For first grade through third grade, we have 230 instructional minutes. And for fourth grade up, we have 240 instructional minutes. So depending on the grade level, the in-person instruction only covers a portion of the required instructional minutes, but the other portion of those instructional minutes will be done asynchronously. So in a case where, so again, remember that your students coming in the morning between 8:45 and 11:15 is only 2.5 hours. So the difference between those 2.5 hours and the required instructional minutes will have to be captured asynchronously. And that's where Lexia Core, Lexia comes in, ST Math comes in, or any teacher assignment comes in through Canvas, so that that's captured.
Another question for special education, can't schedule resource, can't schedule speech, but you've addressed that, Dr. DeJenna. I believe that your principals are working to get the rosters to
Correct.
everyone on their campus so they know where students are. So that would be something that principals will get to our resource teachers, our STC teachers, and our speech therapists, so that they can start creating their schedules.
Yep. So as we continue to go through the questions, I think that as you'll see, you know, once you get to campus, I think, and we walk through all the protocols, I think it will give you more of a sense of calmness and peace that all of these things are in fact in place. In some cases, talking about it may seem abstract, but once we're on campus and we see how all of those things are going to work, just like within in our regular school year when we are all in person, some of our schedules, particularly as they pertain to special education service providers, that, you know, it may not be the ideal time. So both on the general education and on the special education side, we know that sometimes students need to receive those services when we as a general education teacher may not think it's the best time, but our special education providers only have a certain amount of time to be able to deliver these. So we all have to be flexible and work together to create the optimal schedule for our students. And I think once we see the numbers and see who the kids are, I think the concrete will make it easier than as we're speaking right now, a little bit more in the abstract. Okay, it is after 5 o'clock. And I know there are some questions that are still unanswered. I believe our team can capture all of these questions, and we will continue to answer them and get answers back to you. We're going to try to put these into groups because sometimes they're being asked several times. We'll put them into groups and provide this information for our principals as well, so that on the 22nd, they can go through some of these questions that we may not fully have addressed or answered yet. I think, like I said, the most important part of all of this is that as we look forward with excitement to our students returning, we know it's been a long, difficult year and our kids miss being in school. And I know that many of you have reached out and told me how much you needed to have your students back and how excited you are about the possibility. As a district, we are following all of the guidelines, all of the protocols in order to ensure safety. Prior to you returning with students on campus, our business services department has contacted somebody that will be doing an external audit of our sites to ensure that we have addressed all of the requirements for safety purposes. So please know that we are taking every possible measure in order to ensure the safety of staff and students. With that, as always, please know that you can reach out to me. I try to get back to emails within 24 hours. You can give me a call if you have something pressing that's making you lose sleep. I'm happy to try to address that with you. I wish we had more time, but we still have like 170 unanswered questions, and I fear that we're not going to get through all of those. In the meantime, I wish you all a lot of excitement. I hope that you are as excited as we are in welcoming our kids back. And we look forward to seeing you on Monday. So have a wonderful afternoon. Reach out if you need to get a hold of us, and take care of yourselves, stay healthy, and we so look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful afternoon. Dr. Shea, are you there?